What if one decision could silently add thousands of dollars to the cost of your life? Not through taxes, not through wages, but through something you barely notice. Now imagine this, a single policy that increased the cost of building a home by up to $10,000 almost overnight. And the craziest part, it was supposed to help the economy. Instead, it triggered a chain reaction that reshaped trade, industries, and even global power. This is the hidden story behind an economic conflict between the United States and Canada. A conflict where no one died, but millions paid the price. The United States made a bold move. Tariffs on Canadian lumber. Later, tariffs on aluminum. The idea was simple: protect domestic industries, make American production stronger, reduce reliance on foreign supply. On paper, it sounds logical. In fact, this kind of policy is used all over the world. But here's the problem: policies don't exist on paper. They exist inside complex systems, global supply chains, interconnected markets, and dependencies that aren't easy to replace. And when you ignore those connections, even a good idea can turn into a very expensive mistake. Let's start with lumber. Wood might not sound like a big deal, but in construction, it's everything. The United States doesn't produce enough lumber to meet its own demand, so it imports a large portion of it. And a major share comes from Canada. In fact, roughly 1 out of every 3 wooden structures used in American homes depends on Canadian wood. So when tariffs hit up to 45%, the impact was immediate. Prices went up, supply tightened, and suddenly, building homes became much more expensive. Estimates show that construction costs increased by around $7,500 to $10,000 per home. Think about that for a second. That's not a luxury upgrade. That's not a better design. That's just the cost of the same house. And here's the real issue. This wasn't paid by the government. It was passed directly to the people. Homebuyers, renters, developers, everyone in the system absorbed the shock. But it didn't stop at housing, because in a modern economy, nothing is isolated. Every house requires over 180 different components. Each component has its own suppliers, workers, transportation systems. So when one critical input like lumber becomes more expensive, the entire chain reacts. This is what economists call the domino effect, or more precisely, the spillover effect. Housing prices go up, rent increases, people spend more on shelter, which means they spend less on everything else. Businesses slow down, growth weakens, and pressure builds across the entire economy. What started as a trade policy quietly turned into a nationwide financial burden. Then came aluminum. And this is where things got even more serious. Aluminum isn't just another material. It's everywhere. Cars, airplanes, construction, packaging, even something as simple as a soda can. It's a strategic resource. So when tariffs were applied to aluminum imports, the cost didn't stay in one industry. It spread everywhere. Manufacturing became more expensive, production slowed down, and companies were forced to look for alternative suppliers. The US started importing from other regions, the Middle East, Asia, but these weren't perfect replacements. Prices were higher, logistics were more complex, and supply stability was uncertain. A reliable partner had been replaced with risk. Now here's where the story takes a turn. Canada didn't collapse under pressure. It adapted. Instead of relying heavily on the US market, it diversified. New trade partners, new markets. Asia, one of the largest consumers of energy in the world. Europe, searching for stable energy sources. And suddenly, Canada wasn't just a regional supplier anymore. It became a global player. Oil, natural gas, lumber. Demand was growing, and Canada was ready. What started as a defensive reaction turned into a strategic advantage. Sometimes external pressure doesn't weaken a country. It forces it to evolve. So what's the real lesson here? In today's world, no economy operates in isolation. Supply chains are global, dependencies are real, and every decision has consequences. Some are immediate, others are hidden inside rising prices, shrinking opportunities, and silent pressure on everyday people. Policies meant to protect can sometimes backfire, not because the intention was wrong, but because the system is more complex than it seems, and in the end, the real cost is almost always paid by ordinary people. If you want to understand how global decisions shape your life, subscribe, because these stories are happening all around you.